All right, welcome to the Chason Laing podcast. Interesting topics, more interesting people. I'm your host, Chason Laing, and today I have an awesome guest, Charles W. Bush. He is a filmmaker. He's local to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's got his hands in lots of different things, and he's got some cool stuff going up. So we are just going to just dive right in there. Welcome, Charles. Thanks for coming out, having a conversation with me.
Man, I'm glad to be here, man. I told a couple people about the podcast, and they were like, "Where's it going to be on? Where's it going to be? Can I look into it?" And I was like, "You know what? I don't know. I have to ask Chason."
Yeah, no, I'm going to put it out. It's going to be on my YouTube channel, obviously, so that people can just get it that way. And then I've got an arsenal now. I think I'm about 5 or 6 episodes in, and I'm actually going to put them out through the podcast channels as well. But for now, YouTube is going to be the dominant source for it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So, buddy, the reason I reached out to you originally is, well, one, I met you, man, it's got to be a couple years ago. I don't remember when. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
It's been about, I would say, Chason, 5.
Oh, my gosh, 5. A lot has happened in 5 years, man. A lot of crazy stuff. I think I've added like two children at least, maybe 3. so there's always that. Oh, man. But we're filmmakers. We're both in Dallas. And so I think that's how we originally connected. I don't even remember how. I just know I met you for coffee.
We met in New York.
Did we? Were we at a festival?
We were at a festival, and we found out that you were in Arlington and I was in Dallas.
Yeah.
And that's when we connected. I can't remember what festival it was.
It's got to be. Was it Churches Making Movies or something? What's in New York? Buffalo, yes.
Because you went to 2. You said, I'm going to go to another film festival. You said you were going to drive there. You had 2 things, and then it was just so funny. We're both from Texas. You're Arlington, and we met at Starbucks for a while and see what we do. But yeah, I think that was 6 years. I think that was like 2015, 2016.
Oh my gosh. I start feeling old now, man. I feel old.
Me.
Oh, but yeah, that was a hilarious experience. Just, I had 2 festivals that were, within an hour, I think. One was in New York and one was in Pennsylvania, and they were both within a driving distance, I think. And so I went to both. I think I went to the one I met you at, then I drove to the other one, and it turned out to be much smaller than I was anticipating. I remember walking in, there was nobody there when I walked in, and I thought I was in the wrong place, and it was at this barn, and I was like, what, I was like, am I going to get killed? Like, what's happening right now? So I met the people eventually, but then I drove back, and so I guess that's cool. I didn't even remember that we met there, but just goes to show you can meet people in weird places. Turns out we're both here. But yeah, so you're a filmmaker, and I know you've got some cool stuff going on because I've seen your Facebook posts, and you've got, I guess, a new feature underway or something. You want to tell me about it?
Well, man, it's a lot, Chason. Let me see where would I start? What I think you're talking about. Would I even post about that? Well, I'll just tell you this because I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of what you're talking about that I posted about. But I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But I do have a documentary that I'm getting funded, which is from my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity at Arkansas State University.
Yeah.
And so it's about my chapter, and it's a predominantly white school. And we got chartered on that yard, 1975. And our frat house was at the nursing building. But for some reason, I don't know, this is the reason for the documentary. I don't know how our frat house got taken or we didn't have it anymore, but there's no African-American frat houses on the campus at all.
Really?
At all. And it's definitely been upgraded since I graduated. I graduated in 2005, and I crossed with Kappa Alpha Psi, the Sands, 2003. And it's such an upgrade, but we have like the guys that chartered, they're like 75 and 80 now. But I'm going back and interviewing them, and they're talking about how hard it was to bring the organization on that campus and the struggles that they had to go through as far as brotherhood and going from that nature. So that's one thing that I'm doing. And being a film producer, I think funding is very huge. Nothing happens if you don't have money.
Right.
So this is something that I created myself. So that's one project. And then the next project, and I keep going about this, so I'm gonna stop on this one. It's another project called The Coin that we just signed an agreement for it. And it's She gave me the prospectus of it, and the synopsis. I haven't dived so far in the script yet because the money has been exchanged yet. And once deposit gets exchanged and this and that, then I go and dive in. We do a whole pre-production and all this and that. But The Coin is the next thing. It's a feature film. The next thing coming up, it's about sex trafficking and kidnapping, basically. And how that's a lot going on. You see, I'm sure you get Amber Alerts all the time
Oh
on your
yeah.
phone. So we're bringing awareness to that when it happens. How do you seek a person out? And this is from a personal experience that happened. So she's telling that story.
That's really interesting, and it's a heavy topic, and I think it's a really relevant topic. Like, you're not the first person I've talked to that's interested in making a film in that area, but it is a very relevant thing that's happening. Like, I get alerts all the time. It's kind of crazy to me, you know. So, now, real quick, let me backtrack a little bit to what you were saying earlier about your fraternity. So, why do you think that the fraternity didn't exist before? Did you already say that? Like, why? What took them so long to develop it?
Well, 1975 is when it was chartered on that campus.
Mm-hmm.
So there was in 1911 is when we first were originated, and that was in Indiana University. And so it started there in 1911, but on our campus at Arkansas State, it chartered in 1975. So every university has a different year.
Yeah.
That fraternity came to that university. So as far as us, I don't think it's the question is why it started then. It's almost what happened to the beginning of the process of growing and having that house and everything just dispersing. I don't know what that story is like, but I know me for a culture shock, and we're going to tell these stories as well. Coming from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and going to Arkansas State in Jonesboro,
Yeah.
it was a culture shock for me.
Really?
And yes, it was, because I've never been in a school or let alone a classroom, and I was the only Black person. And so it was like, wow. And this is so funny and crazy, because being the only Black in the classroom, when I went back home to Pine Bluff, which is 2.5 hours away from Jonesboro, Arkansas, I noticed other ethnicities. Then it's almost like I couldn't see growing up. It was just like our school was mostly Black. My high school was Pine Bluff High School, and we had, Asians and other people there, but it was predominantly Black. So going to Arkansas State, I'm like, it felt weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I tell this story all the time. People think like, where did you come from? Because we didn't have IHOP. You're not gonna believe this. We didn't have IHOP. We didn't have Waffle House. We didn't have anything but Bonanza, Western Sizzler, and I never went out to any restaurant until I was 18, going to college. So somebody actually saying, "What would you like to eat?" Taking your order, I'm like, "Oh, well, this is what we're doing." You know what I'm saying? I never experienced none of that. Never went to IHOP. Never went in any restaurant and sat down and ate besides Bonanza, and it's because my basketball team went when I was younger. Yeah, and so mom cooked, and we went to restaurants. I mean, McDonald's, Wendy's, places like that. So the whole college experience for me was a culture shock. And so other people have similar stories. So that's the purpose of the documentary, is to, and I can't complete it until I get at least 15 to 20,000, because I'm shooting in Memphis, Tennessee, Jonesboro, Arkansas, and Dallas as far as the different interviews. And I'm interviewing 35 people. So can't just go by myself in the camera. You know how it goes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I understand completely. No, it's interesting because I also went to school in Arkansas. I went to Ouachita Baptist, which is in Arkadelphia. Yeah, so not too far away. So I'm fully aware of your area.
Know that, man.
But what's funny, so like they're in Arkadelphia, which first of all, worst name for a city. Well, not there's Toadsuck, Arkansas. That was the worst name for a city. But Arkadelphia was like, we didn't know what to do, so we just kind of took two places and smashed them together and made a city. But in Arkadelphia, they had Ouachita Baptist University, which is where I went. And then, but right next, like literally next door, is Henderson State University. And so Henderson State had two I think at least 2 real black fraternities that I say real, meaning they were more national. They weren't local because Ouachita didn't allow the national fraternities in. So it had its own, it called them social clubs, but it was basically micro fraternities is what it was. And so our school had, I believe, 1 or 2 black fraternities, social clubs, whatever they call it. And then Henderson also had them. And for a while there, it was very kind of like you didn't mix because they were always doing their own thing. But I ended up getting to know them because I worked out in the same gym that their basketball and football players did at our school. And so there was a mixture because Henderson State guys would come over with some of the Ouachita guys and they were there. So they kind of had their own thing, but it was a very interesting, I don't know. Arkansas was an interesting place just in general. Very, very, and Arkadelphia only had there was Taco Bell and there was like a McDonald's. And then there was a couple places you could sit down to eat, like one Mexican place that really, coming from Texas, it wasn't a Mexican place. But, I mean, they served enchiladas, so a Mexican place. But anyway, neither here nor there. But, yeah, so I feel you. I know Arkansas pretty well. Been to Little Rock. My wife's family's from Northwest Arkansas, so a lot of Arkansas.
This is funny. I never knew all that. I thought it was funny that we met in New York and then you lived in Texas, but I didn't know you had an Arkansas background.
Oh yeah, a lot of Arkansas in there, which is funny because lots of jokes out of Arkansas.
Yeah.
I was a youth pastor. Yeah, I know I'm weird, but I was a youth pastor at this tiny church while I was in college, and it was in Board Camp, Arkansas, which is like you drive through it and you don't know you were there. It's so small. It's right next to Mena, Arkansas, which is like I used to say it's where dreams go to die because there was like one little area in Mena and there was nothing there. And so yeah, a lot of little towns, man. But anyway, all that to say, let's get back to the. So you were talking about funding. You're raising like 30,000 for this film. How do you normally go about the funding aspect? Because obviously, filmmaking, I feel your pain. It's like the hardest part of the whole thing is just trying to get anybody to give you $5. So how do you go about it?
The long way. I get very personal with people and it takes a lot of time, meaning that, how you can do group text messages and you send them out. I say people's name. I talk to them personally over the phone, meet with them, actually text message them, not a group message or not a general message. I say their names and we talk. And then, like, if you chase and say, hey, I got this picture that I'm doing. I want to pitch. This is how much we need. Oh, that sounds great. I know this guy. He's a banker. I know this husband and wife and whatever. Okay, I would like to meet with him. We go out. If they're out of state, I'll fly there. This is, like I said, it's the long way, man.
Yeah.
I fly there. They may say yes, they may say no, but I spend that money to take the husband and wife out, or just the husband, and I'll pitch to them. So I have this whole perspective, QR code, especially the times that we live in.
Yep.
Have my phone up. They look at everything. I pitch to them, and they'll say they'll get back with me or they'll give me some money. So with one project, which you may have saw, that I'm thinking now, because I'm like, what project did you see? Amaya's story is.
That sounds familiar.
And we have a whole website for that. Amaya's story, the movie.com is what that is. And we've raised $15,000 for that, which I feel like is very good. But then when we're trying to raise 200,000, Chason, I mean, that's just a drop in the bucket.
Right. Right.
And so, but honestly, that's it. I've tried the GoFundMe route and the early start of the Kickstarter, and it didn't work for me, man. It just didn't work. So I have a link tree and I have all the different ways, Zelle, Venmo, for everybody to give. I'll create a poster and just make it official with the website, create a website for everything you do. So people say, oh, he's serious.
Yeah.
And just go from there. So right now, Amaya's story, that's a story. And I'm going to Detroit this week to get some footage and also to do some more interviews about Amaya. Amaya's story is about a 7-year-old girl that got shot in the back of the head by her stepfather. And it was a drug deal. Someone kicked in the door. She stepped in line, shot his stepdaughter in the back of the head. And I have the rights to this story. Her organs saved 4 people. And so her real dad got involved, and it's this whole big story, but he found God through this whole situation because he was about to go at it and it was interracial dating. It's a lot of things that's involved in this one story, but the biggest thing is how Oregon saved 4 people and the Gift of Life of Michigan got involved. So this will be shot in Lansing and maybe Detroit, but Lansing and Dallas. And that's the one that I already have 15,000 for.
That's really, first of all, it's an awesome story. Like, that's intriguing just already. I'm sure it will do well because, I mean, everybody likes those, you know, those tragedy that turn into a heartwarming element of the story. Like, that's great. When it comes to the drama, yeah, I mean, the drama, not the drama. When it comes to the fundraising, I totally feel the same way as you. Like, I remember having conversations where I would go to people and try to talk to them into raising some money to do a film, and they'd be like, all right, well, how's like $20? You know, we can give you $20. And it was like, all right, that won't, you know, I remember having clearly a conversation with somebody where they're like, well, how many minutes will like $50 buy if we gave it to you for the show? And I was like, well, it will buy a lens cap. It might buy about, you know, a second, like 1 second. You know, you might buy 24 frames. That's maybe, if it's cheap. So like, that's always been the hardest part of anything, as far as filmmaking goes, is just trying to get people to understand that films do not just come from zero, and that you really have to work. So I appreciate that you're like going out and you're just, you know, doing the long game. I don't know of any other secrets myself to tell you like any other way to do it, because I've never had success, you know, raising money outside of just having somebody, you know, decide to pay for it. Outside of that, like, I've never had kickstarting success or any of that kind of stuff. So
I'm gonna tell you this, Chason. I'm gonna tell you this. What you have, because I've seen your content and what you're doing, that's so huge, is content. Everybody wants content, and you have something so solid with those I'll call them cartoons. With the, you know, what animations
yeah.
you have with everything that you have going. I think that is so awesome. And if everything happens the way it seems like it's going to happen, I have have you been to the American Film Market?
I have. Well, okay, let me rephrase. I haven't been. I've been online. I've attended online. I've had meetings online during COVID, but I never actually flown out to Santa Monica and been there for it.
Okay, so I met 2 people at the American Film Market, and I didn't go either, because the first time it shut down, which was not this past year, the one before that.
Right.
I bought a ticket, everything was going to fly out, shut it down. Did the same thing this year, bought a ticket,
Yep.
and you know, they shut down. So
we have the exact same story. I did the exact same thing. We were going to go, it canceled, and then we were going to go again, and then they're like, it's going to be online, and we did the online thing,
which is like crazy. I'm like, it benefits you more if you're there.
Yes.
And so I didn't care too much for this past time. I wasn't that active, but the first time I was, and I met some cool people. One guy owns a network in Phoenix. He flew me to his premiere, and and it was this crazy experience. I met a lot of celebrities there from like What's Happening, Good Times, and a lot of people in his studio. And which then I met someone from Houston. Long story short, I talked to, and I can say this now, I talked to Lionsgate, and this is just like very huge.
Yep.
And I gave them all of my stuff. When I say all of it, like 3 proposals. And they said, like, oh, that's cool. We're not interested. First of all, they didn't say anything back. It was a week. And then I reached back to them. I was like, hey, you know, did you get my information? They said, like, well, we're not interested. You don't have any A-list actors.
Oh my gosh, dude, well, you finished, then I'll tell you how this is so weird, but go ahead.
They said, you don't have any A-list actors. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'll get some A-list actors and I'll come back. And so now I'm working with a company that works with a big major conglomerate that does films. The company that I'm working with has nothing to do with films, but they want a film representative on their side. So I'm beginning to work with them. Now we're going to possibly, and this may be, you're putting this out, I'll probably stop right here. We're going to try to do something to where it'll be a back and forth with them and with Lionsgate and the rest of the people. And so, but what I'm saying about you is, I'm like, man, if I could just get my foot right there, because I'm on the cusp with all the projects I have like, this is no lie, Chason, like 15, it's a catalog.
Yeah.
like the budget breakdown, the log lines, the synopsis, the plot summary, my team, everything about in different films to for someone to bite.
Yeah.
So now I'm just waiting. But the way I got to Lionsgate was I wasn't supposed to get to them. It was what was it? It was an entertainment group that works with them that gave me the guy's information. So
Mm.
I was just, beating the pavement, calling people and asking, I'm like, hey, I'm Charles W. Bush. I'm with the American Film Market. I'm doing this, doing the whole spiel. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's such and such. Gave me the email, and that's how I got it.
Mm.
And that's how I started talking to them. But nothing came out of that. Again, they said A-list actors, and I just said, okay. So again, I'm still going the long route. And once I can get something to pop, then it's going to pop. But I've been blessed to get people to come to me to and pay me to get their whole proposals together.
Yeah.
That's what's been keeping me afloat, besides weddings and, little stuff that I do that, pays the bills.
Yeah.
But perspectives. So that's what's going on with me, man. And that's what I want to say. You have some good stuff. And when I met you and I saw that, man, I was like, he just need a break like me.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny because I'll just tell you the story and then you'll laugh. You'll see why. So I actually was in Cannes, France, for the film market that was there right after the Cannes Film Festival. And I ended up having meetings with Lionsgate as well. So I had a couple different people from Lionsgate that I got to sit down with, and I was pitching them ideas. And I actually had an idea on the head because I had a couple, story drafts, kind of like what you do, where I have everything laid out. Here's the story. Here's the, character synopsis, and here's all the stuff. And I had two stories particularly that starred, I'll say black. It could have gone African Americans or it could have gone Europe. It was kind of going either way. But they were black stars. And the reason it got hung up is because they asked me, well, which actors do you have lined up for this? And I was like, well, nobody yet, because I'm trying to get, interest in the funding. If somebody like Lionsgate will come along and say, yeah, we're interested if you get the star, then I can contact agents and try to get the star and then marry it together. But they wouldn't commit to anything until I brought the star. But no stars will commit to anything unless there's a backing. And it's like, then you're stuck in this middle going, okay, I'm so close, but I don't know how to put the hands together. And oh man, so yeah, I've had that exact same conversation where it's like, okay, we'll just keep trying.
Hey, Chason, another thing that connects that I haven't had a chance to do, because we're in the same boat. That connects it if we could get that going, but also money. And you probably have heard this, but money in an interest-bearing savings account shows an agent that, they have the money ready to go. So if someone is willing to give you large amounts of money, but they don't want to give it to you yet.
Yeah.
If they can just put it in an account, it's still their money. It's not in your pocket. And you can show an agent, hey, we have this money already ready.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to do even that yet. But
well, yeah, I haven't either. I haven't. Well, and here's the other thing, and I'm curious maybe what your experience is. On the beginning side, it's one thing, and it's difficult just to raise the money for a film. No matter how you do it, it's difficult. But I think it pairs with the side of you have to have a plan for distribution at the end. And so I've had a heck of a time dealing with distribution companies and trying to make a return off of it. So it's one thing, it's like I felt like if we could get the distribution lined up, it's easier to get somebody to make an investment. But how do you go about dealing with the distribution, getting your stuff out there and that whole thing?
Well, for me, as right now, it's about marketing, because distribution, I feel like that's easier, if you allow me to say that, to get it. Like I have connections with the smaller, like Tubi, different regular networks that's on Roku and Amazon, but I don't care about, and even of course the locally, if you've heard Maverick Entertainment around here, Dallas Fort Worth. But it's about marketing, because once you get that distribution, if they don't put it on the front of their channel, on their page, if they're not tweeting and doing social media about it, it doesn't matter. No one's going to see it, and you're going to end up doing your own marketing.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I found two marketing people, one from the American Film Market, and then one lady that's here in Dallas Fort Worth, but it's like 3,000 a month.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, for marketing. So, but that's not just for one project. The good thing about it, covers a multitude of projects. But I have to set that budget. So to answer your question about distribution, I haven't touched it yet. I'm just working on, let's get this solid content in. And I have, again, people that's bringing me their script and saying, hey, this is my script, this is my budget. So right now, the coin, that budget is 20K. I'm trying to, and it's a feature.
Yeah.
So my job in the script right now is every bit of 75 to 100K. And I was like, we can't do this. But in our agreement, I'm saying, kid, I have to get this script down to fit 20K. And so what I'm doing now is trying to take everybody's budget, see if I can find some bit of marketing in there to get us the Good Morning Texas, to get us all of these places that we can get interviews, so that can bring distribution. Because right now, man, if distribution doesn't come with marketing, I don't see a big deal.
Well, you might be onto something there, because I mean, I've definitely can tell you, I've learned the hard way from multiple, like I have quite a few things distributed now with multiple, like different companies that I'm working with. And I remember earlier on, I was a little more naive. I thought that the distributors would be far better at, sending your content out there, like, or, promoting it or putting it on, stuff like that, because I thought, well, they make their money if it gets watched and stuff like that. So they're going to do this. And I've really learned that for the most part, it's the opposite. Like, you give it to them and they'll dump it on Amazon, or they'll dump it on Tubi, or wherever it's going to go. But that doesn't mean they're going to push that show at all. It just means that it's out now. And so then they still, in many ways, leave it up to you, if you want that show out there, to figure out a marketing way to get it out there, which is very frustrating considering the high percentages that a lot of them take, off the end, like for not to doing anything. So I feel like if you had that figured out ahead of time, where if you had the marketing in place ahead of time, where you're already driving up, awareness of the film before it ever gets out there, maybe that might buy you more buying power with the distributor to say, hey, you're going to have to push this thing, and we're already drumming this up. So maybe that would work well for you. But I definitely have learned, like, the other way doesn't work. So I think maybe you're onto something by putting marketing first.
Yeah, definitely. And it just costs so much.
Yeah.
You think about, I'm trying to raise and I'm trying to put the budget for marketing in, the client's budget.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm just like, I have my own camera and cinema equipment. So that takes away some of the costs there, but I don't have lenses. So that's always something I have to do.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that I can put the camera on the tripod, but I'm not going to be the Steadicam operator and all of that. My knees aren't that good to be squatting. I'm not going to carry the whole vest. So I try to figure out, what can I do to cut down on money to bring in marketing? Because right now, we just haven't had the budgets for anything. So I'm just working on getting the picture the best. So each film that I've done since 2010 has been better. It has just gotten better. The production value just has gotten better. And so this next one I touch, I want it to be like the elite.
Yeah. Well, I feel the same way. I mean, I feel like over time, you definitely just naturally get better at your craft because you're doing it more. But I do think, learning the trick of how to, at the end of the day, you want to feed your family, right? And so figuring out, trying to get that put together where all the pieces, I think that's the thing that nobody really talked about for me at a lot of festivals, was like, there's a lot of pieces. And if it's going to work, all the pieces have to come together. You can't leave one out. You can't leave out marketing. You can't leave out the distribution. You can't leave out the funding. You can't leave out the talent. You can't leave out, there's all these things that have to come together just right. And if it does just right, then you might have a profitable film in the end. But for me, it's like, I was naive and just thought, well, just try to make something pretty good, show it's pretty good. And then somebody will be like, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, here's some money, make something else. And that is not how it works at all, buddy.
No, I think a lot of us, think that way. And I think a small part in the back of my mind still does, even though like it's way back there. It's not present at all, but it's
Yeah.
back there. Somebody may see this in some festival. I have a question for you, Chase.
Sure. Bring it on.
So I call myself a film festival or maybe a film festival junkie. I kind of used to, but now I'm more strategic in how I submit. I looked on my dashboard on Film Freeway and saw how many film festivals I submitted to. And I thought about you. I said, I wonder, has Chasen submitted to just as many as me or more? How many film festivals, if
Oh.
you know, have you submitted to?
Oh, so I'd say I've got to be in the ballpark of at least a couple hundred submissions. And I have, so, and the way that film festivals are, I have a really high success rate because I've been very strategic in the festivals I go to. However, I've also learned I don't put a lot of credibility in festivals or red carpets or really even awards, because at the end of the day, they don't mean a whole lot. You know, it's cool. It's always nice to have an applause or, you know, an award for your work. That's great. But it doesn't actually do you much good on the financial end of things, you know, and it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get to make another film even, you know. And so I've had a very difficult time, but I've learned, and I've been trying to get into there's the bigger festivals, you know, from Atlanta, South by Southwest, Austin. There's just a lot of really big name festivals. And if you want to get into those festivals where you're really at that point competing, where there are eyeballs that are the kind of eyeballs that can instantly just change your future by saying, we believe in you a little bit, you know, here's this. There are people at those festivals that can make those decisions, but they're very hard to get in. And I noticed that if you want to get into those festivals, you have to be making content that matches those festivals. And for the longest time, I was not. Well, I would say even now, like I'm not making content that is lined up with some of those major festivals. And so I've tried to get into Austin Film Festival probably 8 times, and I've pretty much given up because I know what I would think I need to make. Like, I've been to Austin Film Festival. I've seen some horrible films that they have played at this thing, you know, just horrible. I'm watching them like, how the heck did this thing get in? This is like the worst thing I've ever seen. And then I can't even get in the door, you know, just give me just like, don't, you know, just give it, be like, yeah, we'll let it in. We'll put it in that theater way over there that has like 5 people, but I can't even get into the thing. But I honestly think that it's because my content doesn't match what they're looking for. They really have a specific thing. Same with South by Southwest or Cannes. I mean, you really, there's just political festivals, big money festivals. All these things come into play with these bigger things. And so if you're not competing on those levels, then, you know, so what? I've had a lot of success with the Christian film festivals, you know, even internationally. Like, my stuff is played in Europe and Canada and here, and I've won a lot of great things at these festivals. But the Christian market is different. You know, one, I mean, it's more isolated, it's smaller, and you know, so it just has a much higher success rate because there's not as much going on there. So, but yeah, I feel you. If I look at my Film Freeway account, it's like, oh my gosh, dude, you have so many things on there. Like, look at all that money that you spent to get in or try to get into these festivals. So yeah, I mean, I can feel you on that regard for sure.
I looked at mine and it's 301.
Ooh, so yeah, I think you're ahead of me. I mean, I would say I'm pretty solid. I bet I'm about 200, so you're ahead.
Yeah, but now I'm doing what you do. I say the past probably year, man, that I've just realized that, hey, I'm just going to focus on certain film festivals. Now, I've always been strategic as far as what, you know, does my film matches. I read everything. I don't just submit unless I've submitted there before.
Yeah.
But I always look and see, you know, where my film places in this. But when you hit it on the head when you said political and, you know, all of that, because I've seen some stuff in Sundance and in Tribeca that
Yep.
won, but I'm that guy that I go research and I watch the interviews and I'm like, how? Like, how? I want to know, how did this happen? How did this young guy get this actor? Where's the connection at? And one of the films is called Sun Up or Sundown or something. It's Sun something. But the guy that he was in Waiting to Exhale, I can't even think the guy's. Can't think of this guy's name. But anywho, um, his professor, the young guy's professor, knew this person and just called him and said, "Hey, be in this film." But it was so dark. The whole film was like literally visually dark.
Yeah.
And he was just in it, and it won in Tribeca for like best cinematography. And he was on like Good Morning America, and I'm looking at this, and Ava DuVernay came and talked to him, and I was just doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and he talked about what he shot with. Oh, you know, my friend got a black magic camera, and one day, you know, and I was just like, I'm not understanding. And so I did a lot of research. So I said, okay, I'm gonna join the Sundance Institute. I'm really just trying everything, Chase.
Yeah.
So I joined the Sundance Institute, and I was paying them, you know, what their yearly deal is, because it's like 3 different levels or categories.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna join some contests so they can see my name, Charles W. Bush. Oh, he submitted this. Oh, he, you know, let's take a look at his film. Since he's supporting us, let's support him. You know, I'm trying all of this stuff, man, and I just haven't gotten there yet. So the post that you made last time, I so felt you, man. I felt that. So
Dude, that post
like,
exploded. And for the audience who has not seen this post, I just posted about being disillusioned with the idea that, and I think I'm not alone, I think a lot of filmmakers get started, and you think if you can make something and at least show capability and show that you can follow through and make a film and get it out there, that you can get rewarded at the end by getting to make more films, because people will then get behind you and support you. And that's a great fairy tale idea, and I'm sure that every now and then that actually happens. But for the most part, it's a delusion. It doesn't happen that way at all. And it's precisely because of what you're talking about. It's like things don't make sense because you've got humans involved. Humans are very chaotic. It won't make sense. Like, you know, I've sat in those same film festivals that you're in where I see things, I'm like, this is just trash. Like, no one is going to pay a dime to see this. This is trash. How is this in here? How is it doing? How has it got a nomination for anything? This thing just is the worst. And it won't make any sense. But, you know, it's like I've come a long way, and I've learned, like, my wife, you know, helps me with things. And so she started being a part of more of my filmmaking here several years ago. And oh my gosh, dude, the doors that open for my wife, once they hear her, that she has, you know, produced or as a part of a filmmaker, like the doors are like, oh my gosh, there's a woman. And they will just, like, people that won't meet with me, the minute they hear her, they're like, yeah. And they're like, we'll have a meeting with you. And like, she has opened doors just because she's a woman, which is great, but it makes zero sense because you're like, okay, but, you know, she's with me. You know, like, we're working on the same stuff, but because it's her, the doors get open. So I think you're competing on a lot of levels, man.
I'm going to say this, which is very sad, and some people, especially my race, may beg to differ. What you just said about your wife, I try not to say hate. I really don't like if it's any organization or film festival, whatever, that has, since diversity, Black Lives Matter, everything is so big right now, and has been, I'm accepted to something. Oh, we have to have a Black person. So come on. I don't like that, because I want to just compete or be the person for it. Don't, you know, choose me because of, you know, you need to have a person to represent, you know. No, I want to compete. If it's a job, it could be, you know, corporate world. So when you just said that about your wife, I thought about the opposite end as far as just being Black. But that is strategic, because I honestly have people on my team, like the woman, like, oh, come on over here. Yeah, I need you. You know, and it's I don't know how to feel about that. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on to it. And at first I was really annoyed, because if we're honest, the worst thing to be in this industry right now is a white dude. Like, I just guarantee you, like, getting meetings, it's because they're compensating for things. And on the one hand, you can say, well, some of these companies, their hearts are in the right place. Like, what's wrong with having women producers? Nothing. What's wrong with having Black producers? Nothing. And so they are like, well, we haven't had these things, and we want to make sure that people know that we value this, so we're going to focus on it. But the trick of that is that over time, you know, these things become key issues. Like, I mean, the story or the talent is no longer as important as the person making it. So I would notice that if we were trying to get meetings with certain companies, it would be better for my wife to send in the email than for me. If my wife sends it, we're going to get the meeting. If I send it, we're probably not going to get a response back. And we just noticed that this was happening. And I think that as much as it might be annoying, I think that it's just part of the world that we're in now, and to just embrace it and say, it is the way it is. I'm not going to think about it too much and just kind of go with it, with what it is. Like if you said, hey, if I'm writing a story and you're like, Chason, what story are you writing? If I put a woman lead in it right now, it's probably way higher to get more meetings than if I put a male, and then that changes also if you put, like an Asian or a black person or a white person. And there's just things, because that's the way it is. It's a commodity now, it's a commodity driven business, like it or not. It's just how it is. And so, I just say, I've kind of stopped thinking about it. My wife and I laugh about it because we'll go to the meeting, but then I end up having to do the talking because it's, the stories, it's like, it's still, me talking and we're there, but it's how it is. And I think that the industry is probably going to stay that way for a while because, we're in a very, woke on a lot of levels culture, and it's busy. I mean, there's money on the line. Nobody wants to get in trouble for things, or, if you slip up and say something that's inappropriate. And so everybody wants to say, no, we are paying attention to that. We definitely don't want press saying we're anti anybody. And so anyway, it's just it's the world now.
Still get the right person in. And instead of just, being woke and just saying, hey, we need an Asian and we need a black person. No, if that black person's work is good, if that, white person's work is good, then,
Well, I would think so, except that I don't really think that that's how it is. I mean, there's a lot of films on Netflix that are just bad, like there's just a bunch. And sometimes you're going to come across a film that's done and it's really good. And they might have the right cast. And I mean, there's plenty of diversity and quality actors these days. Like you could, find somebody that's going to be great no matter what demographic you go to. And so at the end, I think story does matter. But I just think that, I think that, for me, I feel like I would be foolish to go into any meetings not thinking that the demographics are going to come into a factor. In fact, I just listened to a podcast. I don't know if you listen to this. Do you ever listen to Business Wars?
No, I need to, because you're the third person I told me about.
So I like that show. It's a great podcast. Shout out. But it's a great podcast. But they were just there's a podcast right now about the Christmas. I think it's the Christmas movies. It's the Christmas movies. Yeah, it's a whole little section that they just did, and it's talking about all the movies that come out and like the Hallmark Channel doing Christmas movies and all that kind of stuff. But when you're listening to it, when you hear the companies talking about the way that they're picking the films, like it's true. Like they'll have 40 films there on the table, like storylines, log lines of stories, and they'll be like, all right, this one had the LGBTQ lead in it. Let's grab that one. And then this one, we need another black actor. Let's grab that one. And we need to grab this, and let's grab that one. And like the story is not the thing they're talking about. Like they literally are picking it based on that because they need to make sure that they're covering all the bases. And it's very enlightening. And you just have to understand that's how it is. I'd like it not to be, but it's on anyway. So if you might find it interesting. So check out that podcast.
Will do, man. I definitely will do that.
Well, anyway, so let's talk about just a little bit. What are your immediate plans as far as you got these films going on? What kind of films would you like to be working on? If you had your freedom to just say, hey, I want to make a film on something, what do you want to make?
Man, I'm a big softy, if you will. I'll say it before you or anyone else say it. I like romantic comedies, man. I'm a hopeless romantic. I like to I like to find the love aspect in everything, like everything. If it's an action movie, if it's, like, what is it? Shang-Chi, the Marvel joint. Somebody told me about that. It was real good. I was like, do they have a, love interest aspect in it? I was like, yeah, I kind of, had this and that. I was like, okay, I look for that. So the world needs love, man. So yeah. In any kind of way, if it's, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, mom, dad, all of that, daughter, dad, some type of love, strong. I like to highlight that in my film.
Yeah.
So any romantic comedy, somebody throw that my way, or any romantic. I love wit. I like to be moved, and I feel like love moves all. So I feel so,
Yeah.
saying that right now, but that's what I like to do. Now, I recently did a film called Born Identity, and it's about the LGBTQ. I started in 2008, and I just finished in March 2020. It was a passion project, and it's going through some film festivals now, but it's about if you were born this way, and or if it was a choice. So it's nature versus nurture, and all of those things. So I had a guy in 2008 when I was working at a corporate job energy company in Irving, and he said that God gave him permission to be gay. And me being who I am, I was like, what, and I didn't ask him any further questions, because I know how it would have been, and he would have probably felt attacked or something like that. So I was like, wow, God gave you permission to be gay. I said, that's very interesting. So 3 days later, I'm waking up, and I it just didn't sit well with me. And I was like, I want to know more about this. So this was back when Craigslist was. So I put some stuff on Craigslist and got a lot of people. And this is no lie, Chason. I got a lot of people respond on Craigslist, and what over 10 years, I kept in touch with some of those people. And then when March 2020 came, I did the interviews with those people. And in 2013, 14, I had a small team travel to Albuquerque, New Mexico, Los Angeles, California, in city in Arizona. I don't know what city that was in Arizona, and then Memphis, Tennessee, to get different interviews of these different people. I didn't go because I couldn't, but I got all of those interviews together, and I kept those from that time to now. One of the persons that was on that crew that film has passed away. God rest his soul, for this one, so he didn't even get a chance to see it. But the documentary is so cool because I have a pastor who's not in the LGBTQ, but she does the LGBTQ weddings, and her congregation is mostly that. So she believes in love and all this and that. Then I have a pastor that used to be a lesbian for 17 years. And, now she's delivered, and she's on the straight and narrow, if you will. She tells her story and how she was like, got to that, and if it's a choice or not. I have someone that's on there with AIDS. This story just went to the Mega Fest in this past year, 2021, in Mega Fest in Las Vegas. And it got nominated for an award for Best Documentary. Chason, guess who beat me out?
I have no idea who.
It was a Baldwin. It was Daniel.
How many Baldwins are there? I've run into like 5 of them.
Yeah, I think it's 4 or maybe 5. But Daniel Baldwin beat me out, man. But I didn't know. Here's the thing. All I know is Alec. So I know his brothers, but I didn't know nobody else's name. So when he walked up there and I looked at him and I heard his voice, I was like, oh my God, because I didn't even look at the pamphlet or anything. I looked at it and I was like, oh my God. I said, why is he in the category with me? I said, I should have won this. I should have, he needs to go somewhere else because he's a big name. So he needs to go somewhere else and win another award. I should have got this award. But I ended up looking at the brighter side of things and this and that. But that's called Born Identity. So that's circling right now. It's a passion project. Chason, I shot that with 3 different cameras, man. So it's just everywhere. But again, it was when I was first starting.
Yeah.
And I shot with a Nikon, I shot with a Canon, and I shot with my cinema camera now, which is the Panasonic EVA 1. So I shot with all of those, but it's right at an hour and I think like 25 minutes. Yeah, I think so.
Well, I'll definitely have to check it out when it gets posted somewhere I can see it. I'll definitely check it out and see what it is. It sounds really interesting, and it's super topical right now because that question is bouncing around, a bunch of different places. I've heard that question bounce around, so it's interesting.
Yeah, like do you just wake up and say, "Hey, I want to be this way," or did you always have this feeling? Because as long as, and I try to be compassionate and understanding and open-minded, if you will, with that community. When I think about me, because far as I know, when I grew up, I was like, I like girls. You know what I'm saying? So what if I grew up and just as soon as I saw a boy and a girl, I'm like, oh, I like boys. I have to think like if that was the thing, you know, that's the thing. So someone said they were like that, and other ones like, no, I had a choice. One person was raped and went through and had 7 miscarriages, and guys just treated her terrible. So she went, you know, to girls.
Yeah.
You know, so but it's the reason for the documentary for me and for someone else to watch it is to find your answer, find how you feel, come away with this documentary feeling if you were homophobic, not to be, or, you know, I always wanted to know this or how people felt. Here's your answers. Here's a slew of people talking, you know, in different races. You have people in the military. One guy that didn't talk to, he came out to his mom. He didn't talk to his mom for 20 years after telling her. He only said happy birthday and Merry Christmas because she didn't want to accept him in the household. So he had to go through that. Yeah, man, it's pretty interesting to hear, but I wish I could, like, if I had to do it over again, I really would want to do it over again because I know so much more information now, and I could just do it better. But that's Born Identity, man. So that's another one that is circling.
Well, yeah, well, make sure you let me know when it's somewhere I can watch it, and we'll check it out. Maybe we can have another conversation about it, because that's not enough for the time that we have to do this. That's a whole thing. So it'd be interesting to see your documentary and like what it says and like the response to it and stuff like that. But well, we're gonna wrap it up here. First of all, though, Charles, how can people follow you? Do you have Instagram? You want to shout out any of your follow handles?
Yes. On Instagram, you can follow me at Charles W. Bush, and everything's the same. On Twitter, it's Charles W. Bush. Facebook is Charles W. Bush, and then you can also go to charleswbush.com.
Awesome. Well, that's really awesome, dude. Thank you so much for coming out and doing this. We'll definitely do it again because we have a lot in common, a lot of different things that we have related to on the filmmaking side. And if I find any secrets, buddy, I will definitely let you know, but I will insist that you do the same.
Most definitely. I will. Most definitely, man.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been the Chason Laing podcast. You will find relevant links from today's show in the show notes below, so check that out, including Charles W. Bush's handles, so you can follow him there. Please do. If you enjoyed our show, please hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell to get access to our shows as soon as they drop. And that's all for this episode, folks, so go get after it.